Make sure that your vaccinations are up to date for common environmental pathogens like tetanus, which is a bacterial disease. And you need to realize that you're exposed to potential lacerations and cuts and scrapes, which could be tetanus prone. So you need a tetanus booster every 10 years. Older people should consider getting a tetanus shot that's also combined with acellular pertussis vaccination to protect themselves from pertussis, which is also a bacterial infection that's highly contagious, and older people actually get it from kids. What else do you need to do to protect yourself during a cleanup after a flooding event? Well, you need to wear personal protective equipment to protect your eyes when working, such as goggles. You need to wear long sleeves, long pants like blue jeans, wear steel-toed shoes to protect your feet. And also you need to be concerned about conserving your hearing. If you're using a chainsaw, if you're exposed to chainsaws, or if you're exposed to heavy equipment, or even generators that make a continuous loud noise, and if you have to raise your voice or shout out loud to be heard, then you need to protect your hearing with earplugs and/or earmuffs. What else do you need to do? If you are using that heavy equipment, like chainsaws, or you have a generator, or you even have a gasoline-powered pressure washer to clean up with, you need to realize that all of these pieces of equipment use diesel or gasoline, and in their exhaust they're releasing carbon monoxide. So these pieces of equipment need to be placed outside, well ventilated, and not used in a closed space that could expose cleanup workers to carbon monoxide, which is colorless, odorless, tasteless, and it's a silent killer. When you're selecting cleanup agents, you need to be careful not to mix cleanup agents. And you should never combine Clorox with ammonia-containing cleansers, because that will create and release ammonia gases and ammonium chloride gas. And you should never mix Clorox with drain cleaner or any sort of acid cleaner, muriatic acid if you're cleaning bricks, because that will release chlorine gas, which is a very dangerous poison gas. So never mix cleanup agents. Always use cleanup agents separately. Next, you have to be concerned about other exposures in the environment, and the next most important one is heat stress, because you're going to be in an enclosed space. There'll be no electricity. You'll be exposed to high temperatures and high humidity, and you'll be working very hard. So you will need to hydrate yourself adequately, and the way you do that is to drink at least a quarter cup every 15 or 20 minutes. Quarter cup of water is the best liquid to drink. Bottled water, particularly if you're unsure of any of the tap water, and you should be uncertain of the tap water, so you should be drinking bottled water. So at least a half a cup or so every 15 to 20 minutes, quarter to a half a cup every 15 or 20 minutes. Even the sports drinks that contain electrolytes are good. What's not good are the sugary soft drinks and alcohol. So you want to avoid these because they can actually promote heat stress. So you want to hydrate with water or with electrolyte containing sports drinks. So that's very important. And you need to take breaks. Breaks every 15 or 20 minutes for you to hydrate yourself. And it is possible to actually suffer a heat exhaustion or heat stroke under these conditions because you're inside in high humidity, high heat environments. So heat stress is another major issue. There are other environmental considerations that you have to consider. One is just climbing on a ladder. A lot of people don't realize that in individuals who are, say, over age 55, 60, falling off a ladder is the most common cause of injury and a very common cause of fatal injury. So being on scaffolding, climbing up ladders, you need to be very careful, particularly if you're near electrical power lines and you're not sure whether or not there's electrical power. So be careful moving that 12-foot ladder around. So those are some of the other things you need to be concerned about environmentally. And one of the last issues to be concerned about is a lot of creatures have been displaced by flooding. And some of these creatures are watching you all the time, and they, even in the cities. And they include animals like possums and raccoons, and they may even include snakes, which could be living under your house. And they could also include fire ants. So what happens is when these animals are displaced from their environment, they're going to seek shelter in a dried environment. It could be your attic, it could be your home after the floodwaters recede. So you need to be careful, certainly approaching a wild animal, which you should not do. You should call animal control for help or an expert for help, because when these creatures are cornered, particularly like a water moccasin or even a possum with very sharp teeth, they can attack. And raccoons, not necessarily in Louisiana, our biggest reservoir for rabies in Louisiana are in bats, but raccoons can also be reservoirs for rabies. So you need to be concerned about wild animals. A lot of people don't realize that ants can swim. Well, they really can't swim. But what happens is ant colonies from that big ant pile that might have been in your yard and you weren't able to treat it, they're lighter than water. And all the ants will essentially hook themselves together and they'll float like a raft until they can find some debris to hook onto. So you could have a big colony of red ants just kind of floating into your house, and then as the floodwaters recede, they'll just establish a new red ant colony right there. So be aware that living creatures get displaced as well as humans do.